More McNeil trying to get around runs into just look at that. Off balance going. Caitlyn Clark changed the math. 4,000 fans and turned into 17,000. Silence turned into demand. A lead people ignored became a league they couldn't escape. This wasn't gradual. It wasn't planned. It was a takeover. And when names like Shaquille O'Neal start paying attention, you know something real is happening. When rivals like Angel Reese turn every matchup into must-watch television, you know it's bigger than one player. This is pressure. This is a spotlight. This is a shift. Legends like Michael Jordan, Stephen Curry, and LeBron James built their legacy inside empires. She's building hers while the empire is still forming, and that changes everything. Think you know your favorite players? Let's see if you're really paying attention or just cheering from the couch. Quiz. Who is mentioned as Clark's rival? The one making matchups must-watch events? A. Subbird. B. Angel Reese. C. Diana Taurasi. D. Paige Buchers. Ready to prove it? Drop your answer in the comments. Beyond the arc, picture this. A college basketball game. Iowa Hawkeyes against a ranked opponent. The arena is full. The cameras are rolling. The defender is playing tight up in her jersey, doing everything right. And Caitlyn Clark catches the ball 5 foot behind the three-point line. Not on the three-point line. And a legendary career adds another page in a legend. Behind it, way behind it, standing on the logo at half court, the spot where most players would call a timeout or swing the ball to a teammate. She doesn't even hesitate. One dribble, pull up, the ball leaves her hand with this impossibly high arc. The kind of shot that makes coaches lose sleep. The kind of shot that makes analytics people break their keyboards. All right, and it goes in. The moment you've been waiting for. Here comes the answer. Perfect. B. Were you on target? Let me know if your guess in the comments was correct. Not sometimes. Not once in a while. Consistently over and over and over again. Enough that opposing coaches had to start game planning for a shot that isn't supposed to exist in women's basketball. They call them logo threes. The same shot that made Stephen Curry a household name. Oh, it did. But it will not count. They waved it off. They're going to take a look at this. Well, sure they are. The same shot that changed the geometry of the NBA forever. And here was a 21-year-old woman in Iowa City doing it in front of 18,000 fans like it was a layup drill. But the shooting was only half the story because Caitlyn Clark wasn't just a scorer. She was a floor general, a conductor, the kind of passer who could throw a 60-foot bullet through a window you didn't even know was open. She averaged 31, 6 points and 8, 9 assists per game in her senior year at Iowa. Numbers that don't belong on the same stat sheet. You're either a scorer or facilitator. That's what the textbooks say. She was both at the highest volume anyone had ever seen. By the time she finished at Iowa, she had surpassed Pete Maravich's all-time NCAA Division I scoring record. Let that settle in for a moment. The all-time record, not the women's record, the record, period. 3,951 points across 4 seasons, rewriting a mark that had stood since the 1970s. And the way she did it was what made people lose their minds. She wasn't methodical. She wasn't robotic. She played with this reckless, fearless. Here's Clark. Wow, you from beyond the logo and a little point afterwards. Saw me almost joyful energy like a kid on a playground who just happens to have a supercomputer for a brain. She would pull up from 30 feet with a hand in her face and flash a grin before the ball hit the net. She would whip behind the back passes in traffic that had her own teammates looking confused. She would wave off screens, call her own number, and deliver in moments that would crush most players. The 2024 NCAA tournament became her coronation. Her Elite 8 game against LSU drew 12. 3 million viewers. Clark will fire and hit. Her Final Four matchup against UConn pulled 14. 2 million, making it the most watched basketball game in ESPN's history. Not women's basketball. Basketball, that number beat NBA Finals games. It beat World Series games. It beat everything except a handful of college football matchups. And then the national championship game against South Carolina drew 18. 9 million viewers on ABC. The first time in history, a women's NCAA title game outdrew the men's. 18-9 million, all because of a kid from Iowa who shot the ball like she had a cheat code. But here's where it gets interesting, because college is one thing. The WNBA is something else entirely. And when Caitlyn Clark got drafted number 1 overall by the Indiana Fever in April 2024, with the first pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlyn Clark. Clark overcomes doubts. The narrative was already written before she played a single professional minute. She's too small. She can't handle the physicality. College stats don't translate. The WNBA veterans are going to eat her alive. And honestly, some of those critics had a point. The WNBA is a different animal. The athletes are bigger, faster, stronger, more experienced. Every player on every roster was the best player on her college team. The margin between good and great shrinks to almost nothing. Diana Taurasi, one of the greatest to ever play the game, one of the most accomplished players in women's basketball history, period, went on record before Clark's first season, saying the adjustment would be steep. The message was clear. Welcome to the big leagues, kid. And in the early weeks, it looked like the doubters might be right. Clark's shot wasn't falling the way it did in Iowa City. Defenders were more physical, more relentless, more willing to put a body on her every possession. She was getting bumped off screens, losing the ball in traffic, committing turnovers at a rate that made the highlight reels for all the wrong reasons. A WNBA record 5, 6 turnovers per game. Social media was brutal. Every missed shot got clipped. Every turnover went viral. Every bad game became proof that she wasn't ready. But then something changed slowly, quietly, like a tide that nobody notices until they're already underwater. The turnovers started to drop. The shot selection sharpened. The passes, those ridiculous, impossible thread-the-needle passes, started finding their targets with surgical precision. By mid-season, she wasn't just surviving, she was dominating. She became the first rookie in WNBA history to record a triple-double, but she's the first player ever to win Rookie of the Month and Player of the Month. By the start of her second season, she was tied for third all-time in career triple-doubles with players who had 10 or more seasons on her. She set the WNBA single-season assist record with 337. She broke the rookie records for points and three-pointers. Well, she led the entire league in assists and threes made, not rookies. The entire league. And she led the Indiana Fever to playoff for the first time since 2016, and in the longest postseason drought in the franchise's history. First time in 8 years, the Fever are headed to the WNBA playoffs. The critics didn't go quiet all at once. It happened in waves. One former player at a time, one commentator at a time, one reluctant compliment at a time. The kind of slow, grudging respect that only comes when someone's talent becomes too obvious to deny. By September, she was a near-unanimous WNBA Rookie of the Year, receiving 66 of 67 votes. She finished 4th in league MVP voting as a rookie on a team that had been one of the worst in the league 12 months earlier. Then came 2025, and the basketball gods tested her in a different way. Injuries. She must endure 3 separate injuries that limited her to just 13 games out of 41. After never missing a single game in 4 years at Iowa, or her entire rookie WNBA season, Caitlyn Clark yet again making history. She finished her night with 24 points. Her body said, not yet. She averaged 16, 5 points, 8 assists and 5, 0 rebounds in the game she played. Absurd numbers for someone playing through pain. But eventually the Fever shut her down for the season. The comparison people drew was to Michael Jordan's second year, when a broken foot limited him to 18 games before he came back and averaged 37 points per game. The setback was real. The frustration was real. But the belief never wavered because everyone who watched those 13 games in 2025 saw the same thing. A player who was getting better. A player who was evolving. A player whose ceiling was still somewhere in the clouds. When legends started watching, there's a moment in every generational athlete story when the doubters run out of excuses. When the old guard stops folding their arms and starts clapping for Caitlyn Clark, that moment had a name, Shaquille O'Neal. Now, Shaq wasn't a hater in the traditional sense, but he had a loyalty. He and Angel Reese, Clark's fiercest rival from their college days through the WNBA, shared a genuine bond. Shaq signed Reese to Reebok. He called her family. And for most of the 2024 season, that loyalty meant keeping quiet about the player on the other side of the rivalry. Then came August 30th, 2024. Chicago, Reese's Sky hosting Clark's Fever. Shaq flew in to sit courtside and support his girl. He watched the game unfold with every intention of cheering for the home team. What he saw instead changed his mind forever. Clark poured in a career-high 31 points, dished 12 assists. The Fever demolished the Sky by 19 points. Shaq watched logo threes splash in from distances that shouldn't be legal. He watched passes thread through defenders like they weren't there. He watched a 22-year-old orchestrate a basketball game the way a conductor leads a symphony. Weeks later, sitting across from Reese on her own podcast, Shaq said out loud, he compared Clark's range to Stephen Curry's. He admitted he tried to will her shots into misses, and they kept going in. He said, when someone proves you wrong 10 times in a row, there's only one thing left to call her the truth. On Good Morning America, he doubled down, calling her a fabulous player and the female Steph Curry on national television. This wasn't a casual compliment. This was an NBA Hall of Famer, a 4-time champion. Brings the crowd to its feet with a big smile in the 2000 NBA champions, publicly reversing himself because one player's talent made it impossible not to. And Shaq wasn't alone. The gravitational pull of Clark's stardom was dragging icons from every corner of the sports universe into women's basketball for the first time. Tom Brady recorded a personal video congratulating her when she broke the NCAA scoring record. Former President Barack Obama posted praise on social media. Patrick Mahomes, the reigning Super Bowl MVP, told reporters she'd get buckets on him one-on-one. Travis Scott showed up at an Iowa game. Jason Sudeikis, the star of Ted Lasso, sat courtside alongside WNBA legend Sue Bird. First Lady Jill Biden attended her championship game. Billie Jean King, the godmother of women's sports, was in the building. Then in August 2024, Simone Biles walked into Gainbridge Fieldhouse for a Fever game alongside Olympic sprinter Gabby Thomas. Biles, the most decorated gymnast in history, posted afterward that it was her first WNBA experience and that it wouldn't be her last. By early 2025, Clark and Taylor Swift were appearing together at a Kansas City Chiefs playoff game. Look who was there. Well, Taylor Swift, of course. But sitting next to her, that's our Caitlyn Clark, making the cover of Time magazine's inspiring women edition side by side. The accolades follow the attention. Time named Clark their 2024 Athlete of the Year. The Associated Press gave her Female Athlete of the Year. Nike locked her into an 8-year, $28 million endorsement deal, the richest sponsorship contract in women's basketball history, with a signature shoe and a personal logo featuring 2 interlocking C's. By 2025, her endorsement income hit $16, $1 million in a single year. Wilson gave her a signature basketball collection, placing her alongside Michael Jordan as the only athletes in the company's history to receive one. Think about that for a second. A second-year WNBA player standing next to Michael Jordan in a brand's legacy. Caitlyn Clark impact. Here's where the story gets bigger than basketball. Because what Caitlyn Clark did to the WNBA wasn't just impressive. It was unprecedented in the history of professional sports. In 2023, the Indiana Fever averaged 4,677 fans per home game, second worst in the league. The entire organization drew about 81,000 fans across the full season. In 2024, they surpassed that 81,000 mark in their first 5 home games alone. By season's end, the Fever had set a new WNBA record with 340,715 fans in total home attendance. Over 500,000 people attended Fever games combined, home and away. In a single season, they became the first team in WNBA history to draw more than 300,000 fans at home. The Mystics moved to Capital One Arena, which seats over 20,000. It sold out, but it wasn't just bodies and seats. It was eyes on screens. And every single one of those games involved Caitlyn Clark. 24 WNBA events topped 1 million viewers that season. All but 3 involved Clark. Games featuring the Fever average 0.99 million viewers. Games without her average 414,000. She was by herself, nearly tripling the rest of the league's ratings. The 2024 WNBA draft drew 45 million viewers, the most in history. Her regular season debut against the Connecticut Sun was the most watched WNBA game since 2002. The All-Star Game more than doubled its previous record. WNBA. Merchandise sales exploded, up 756% year over year in online transactions. League Pass subscriptions more than tripled. The WNBA app saw a 613% increase in monthly active users. Sports betting on the WNBA surged. Forbes valued the Indiana Fever at $370 million, second only to New York Liberty, and credited Clark's popularity as a driving force. The team led the league in revenue with an estimated $32 million in 2024 and became the most followed women's basketball team online. The Common Sense Institute in Iowa estimated that the Caitlyn Clark effect increased Iowa's gross domestic product by between $4 million and $52. $3 million during her college career, generating approximately $82. $5 million in consumer spending. And here's the part that matters most. It wasn't just the Fever benefiting. Every team saw attendance bumps. Every network saw ratings growth. The entire WNBA ecosystem was lifted because one player made the entire country curious enough to tune in. It's difficult to find a precedent for this in any sport. Rookie players don't move entire league economics. They don't cause stadiums to relocate games. They don't triple television ratings across 6 networks simultaneously. But Caitlyn Clark did. The new WNBA collective bargaining agreement, negotiated on the momentum she helped create, includes provisions that will dramatically increase player salaries. The epic provision fast-tracked Clark's own salary to $530,000 by 2026, a massive jump from the $76,000 she earned as a rookie. Diana Taurasi, who played 20 seasons as arguably the greatest WNBA player ever, once said she had to play overseas in Russia and Turkey during the off-season just to earn a living wage. The janitor at her home arena, she said, made more money than she did. Clark is poised to earn more in endorsements by age 25 than Taurasi earned in her entire career from all sources combined. That's not a slight against Taurasi. That's the entire point. Taurasi's generation built the house. Clark's generation gets to finally put the lights on. Clark sparks change. A 9-year-old girl named Autumn in Washington, D.C. woke her father early one Saturday morning in 2024 and said 3 words that would change the way they spend weekends forever. I want to watch WNBA. Not because she'd seen a commercial, not because someone forced her to, but because she had been following every impossible three-pointer and dazzling assist from Caitlyn Clark online that day. Clark, she fires and goes. She hit it. They drove into the city for their first WNBA game. And now they follow 4 teams. Real fans being born. Little girls learning player names. Fathers and daughters sharing tickets. Casual viewers turning into diehard supporters. This is not passive attention. This is engagement. And it's the heartbeat of how entire leagues are transformed. Because Clark didn't just generate curiosity. She generated fandom. She sparked the kind of cultural enthusiasm that turns a sport from background noise into mainstream obsession. The NBA's legend building of Magic and Bird in the 1980s created lifelong basketball fans. Michael Jordan turned them into global consumers. LeBron James ushered them into the digital age. Each era built on the last one. And now women's basketball is living its Magic and Bird moment. Clark's impact, dubbed the Caitlyn Clark effect, didn't start with her first professional minute. It started years earlier at the University of Iowa, where she shattered NCAA scoring records and set historic viewership marks. Her 2024 senior season produced the most watched women's college championship ever, pulling 9 million viewers on ABC, the first time a women's title game outdrew the men's. When she was drafted number 1 overall by the Indiana Fever in April 2024, the league entered a new era. In the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlyn Clark. 6 different networks set record TV audiences for WNBA games, and everyone involved Clark. Even the Fever's home games drew an average of over 17,000 fans, a franchise and league landmark. But the numbers are more than impressive, they're telling. Across ABC, ESPN, CBSN, and NBA TV, the league averaged over 3 million viewers per game, nearly triple the year before, and opened the door for millions of families to watch women's basketball together. Behind those seats and screens came mainstream cultural validation. Major media rights negotiations came off the back of this momentum, culminating in a multi-billion-dollar broadcast deal that will carry the league for over a decade. Investors finally saw what fans already felt. This was real growth, not a blip, and it's not just American attention. The WNBA fan base is becoming global. Fans, some of them traveling as far as Texas to see today's game, were all eyes not only on Clark, but superstar Sky rookies with international ticket purchases and viewership climbing as far afield as Japan and the Middle East, signaling a broadening audience hungry for women's basketball. And this title shift didn't just help one league. It reshaped how players are valued and marketed. Before Clark turned pro, many critics pointed to traditional salary skepticism. Women's basketball wasn't supposed to be financially transformative. That narrative evaporated. She signed a landmark 8-figure endorsement deal with Nike, including her own signature shoe. Caitlyn Clark's new logo is Nike's newest signature athlete, one of the richest in women's basketball history. Perhaps most striking is the structural change that followed. Before her arrival, ticket demand for WNBA games was steady but modest. After her rookie season, teams across the league reported double-digit attendance growth, merchandise sales soaring, and a wave of corporate sponsorships flocking to league events. And the impact continues with new stars emerging, like Paige Buchers, the number 1 pick in the 2025 draft, who enters the league with more endorsement value than Clark's entire rookie salary. Caitlyn Clark, a salary as a rookie capped at $76,535. An outcome made possible because Clark proved the market existed. But the most compelling question remains: what happens next? Clark is already tied for 3rd all-time in WNBA triple-doubles after just over 40 games. She set rookie records in points, assists, and made threes. She drew unprecedented audiences on both college and professional broadcasts. And she did it while still growing as a player. When she returns fully healthy, what will happen then? Will she drive deeper playoff runs? Will she attract even broader global audiences? Will women's basketball continue a trajectory from niche to dominant force? One thing is beyond debate. We're watching a sport change in real time, not in retrospect, but right now. And long after this era is over, the world won't just remember who she was. They'll remember what she started. The arenas keep shaking. The record books keep breaking. Every night, the sport itself bends under the gravity of one player's talent. Caitlyn Clark hasn't just rewritten the rules. She's rewritten the expectations. And make no mistake, this story is far from over. Every shot she takes, every pass she delivers, every moment on the court is a challenge. To the doubters, to the veterans, to history itself. The game is changing around her, and the question isn't whether she can keep raising the bar. It's how high the world will have to climb to keep up. The arenas, the records, the headlines, they're only the beginning. And because the true measure of a legend isn't what they accomplish in a single season, it's the way they redefine what's possible for generations to come. So, here's the question you need to hold on to. When historians look back and ask, when did women's basketball become impossible to ignore? What will you say? Will you say you watched it happen? Or will you say you only heard about it later? Because make no mistake, this isn't the finale. It's the opening chapter.